Hello, reporter room investigators. Great to see you. I am here. It's Monday night at 6 p.m. Come on in. Come on in. We have so much stuff to talk about. Did Kaylee solve her own case? Well, I have some new information for you, and we're going to be sharing a whole bunch of great stuff today. My name is Jessica Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, potential suspects, and criminals, and share with you how to consider suspects, crime scenes, and evidence. Everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion, and opinions are not facts. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I'm going to be showing you some information based on fair use. Please subscribe, smash the like button, and leave me a comment in the top chat or below. I want to welcome everybody, and we're going to get started right away. Let's see who's here tonight. We have May is here, and Cynthia, and Mike is here. Jane is here. Pam is here. Oop. Florence is here. And Mike is here. Okay. And Trudy's here. And I almost skipped this one. Never fear truth. Oh, I like that. Lynette's here. Kelly's here. Tell me where you're from. Come on in, guys. We have so much stuff to talk about in this case. And thank you for working with me on getting started on this. I do want to just encourage you to please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up, and let me go ahead and thank our producers, George, Sasha, Angel, and also our channel members. If you would like to be a channel member, just hit the join button. Your name will appear in all of my live streams and in all of my videos that we do, just like this. And you can see they have the check marks, red, green, and blue in the top chat, and those are our channel members. So come on in, come on in. All right, let's go ahead and let's get started. Okay, so we have so much stuff to get into. I have multiple packages to share with you. We are going to start today talking about blue snarfing. We're going to be talking about roommates Bethany and Dylan. Did Kaylee solve her own case? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to be talking about the roommates, Bethany and Dylan. Were they texting each other? We're also going to be talking about psychopathic traits that lead to crimes like this one. I had some of you asking me for proof that BK did spy on a female colleague. He is presumed innocent until proven guilty, but I'm going to show you that. The WSU Crime Lab with access to 5 different law enforcement agencies and BK's extensive knowledge of technology and how this would have given him access to Kaylee's laptop, cell phone, Apple Watch, and more. So did Kaylee solve her own case just like Paul Murdaugh did in the Alex Murdaugh trial? So what is blue snarfing? Let's take a look at this. So blue snarfing, that's what we're going to start with today. Okay, so blue snarfing is unauthorized access of information from a wireless device through a Bluetooth connection, often between phones like cell phones, desktop computers, laptop computers, your personal digital assistant, your Apple Watch, whatever you have. This allows access to your personal information, including calendars, contact lists, emails, and even text messages. And on some cell phones, users can even get copies of your photos and private videos. So both blue snarfing and blue jacking exploit other people's Bluetooth connections. You're going to say, well, what does this have to do with Bryan Kohberger? Well, give me a second, because I'm going to tie that up in a bow for you. So we're also going to be talking about Dylan and Bethany's text message and Bryan Entin's take on this in just a second. So while blue hijacking is essentially harmless because it only transmits data to the target device, blue snarfing, this is a lot more serious. It's the theft of information from the target device. So what did the Moscow Police Department have to say about this? I'm going to share that with you in just a second. So we're going to also talk about Dylan, Bethany, psychopathic traits in just a moment. We have so much to unpack tonight, so please stay with me. So these devices do listen to you all the time, even if they're not set up to do something like that. So your Alexa, your Siri, even though it's completely turned off, it can listen to you. So let's look at blue snarfing. And since BK was so interested in cloud-based forensics, he would have known a lot about this technology. And how does this relate to the colleague, the female colleague that he staged a break-in, spied on her? Well, I'm going to share that with you too, how this all ties together because it is a pattern of behavior. So we're going to talk about hacking. Let me say hello to the chat really quick. I just want to be polite and say hello. So let's see who's here. Please give this a thumbs up on your way in. Okay, so Mike is here. Lynette's here. Yeah, tell me where you're from, guys. Florence is here. Kelly's here. Betty's here. Deb's here. Susan's here. Okay, so let's go down. Simply Me is here. E is here. Welcome, you guys. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up. Yes, please. Thumbs up. Thanks, DM. The Jewel is here. Deb is from Asheville, North Carolina is in the house. Hey, Denise. Good to see you. Jane is here. She does think that Kaylee solved her own case. I think so too. And I'm going to show you why I believe that in just a second. And the Jewel is here, says BK had accessed other female cameras by remote. Yes, he did. And I'm going to prove it to you in just a second. So it's a pattern of behavior. And I want to show you what the Moscow PD said about all of this, how they weighed in when they were asked about this, and Bryan Entin's perspective on this also. Sirius Black is here. Great to see you. Becca says, hello, I'm late, so I'm going to the beginning at 1.5 speed. I'm just getting started, Becca, so you haven't missed anything. You're okay. Kamie's here. Good to see you. Jane says that is scary. Njaz says, hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late. Maymay says, my Alexa never listens to me. Well, I'm going to show you that it does. I'm going to show you. Hey, JJ, good to see you. Denise says, Jessica, I've seen out moving and two men in a truck keep popping up. You see, if you even talk about it, if you want proof, talk about something really random and then see if you get offered ads for it. Something that you haven't searched for. Hey, welcome, Brett. Good to see you. Penny is from Iowa. Mimi's here. Maymay says, I'm from my parents. Candy's here. Mike says his Bluetooth keeps turning itself on. All right, well, let's get started on this because we do have a lot to unpack. Just want to say hello to Rick. Good to see you. Tattoo is here. And all opinions are welcome. Just share them in a respectful way. Mama T's here. So it's great to see you guys. Marilyn's here. All right, so let me go ahead and get started because I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. So what exactly is blue snarfing? Well, blue snarfing is a hacking technique in which hackers access wireless devices through a Bluetooth connection. And this can happen without your device's permission. It can happen without you giving permission, and it often results in the theft of information or some other kind of damage to the device. So what does this have to do with Kaylee? I'm going to tell you in just a second. So if the police took Alexa, right, from the 1122 King Road house, then for sure they hope that the IT specialists are able to recover information from that device. So was BK's phone intentionally or unintentionally leaking to Kaylee's Bluetooth? Well, let's listen to Bryan Entin. I give credit to News Nation on this. Let me grab it. And it would be great if I shared it with you, wouldn't it? Sorry about that. I'm like been really digging into this stuff today. Okay. You guys see that? Yes. Okay, let's go.
There's action. Those things actually don't stay dormant. And here's something critical. Early in this investigation, in the first, week plus, when we were still getting public news conferences, the Northwest Public Broadcasting reporter named Lauren Patterson was sitting in the press corps, and she asked a question of the authorities who were conducting the news conference. And man, oh man, did that girl have insight to ask a clever question.
So for those of you who just think that this is just me, no, this was asked by another news outlet at the press when this is back when they were doing press coverages, regular updates with us. So listen to this and then listen to the answer that law enforcement gives you guys.
Have a look.
Curious if the Wi-Fi hotspot has been tapped at all. It's possible if the suspect had their phone on them, it may have pinged off the Wi-Fi in the residence. Has that been checked on at all?
As I stated, our investigation is looking at every avenue of every piece of evidence that we can.
So he did not want to answer that question. He tap danced around it. He didn't want to answer it. And of course, they don't want to tell everybody, what they have. But with BK applying for a job with the Pullman PD, he wanted to teach them technology. So it's very likely that he would have known this, but you don't have to just take my word for it. Listen in.
Every avenue of every piece of evidence of, okay, I get it. They're not going to say it there. And they didn't say it for 4 months. But now we know. Source close to the investigation saying a Bluetooth speaker was discovered by the police in Kaylee's room. I want to bring in
So a source has claimed that a Bluetooth speaker was recovered from Kaylee. So was he accessing this Bluetooth? Was he? And we're going to talk about blue snarfing and how he would have gotten a hold of this in just a second. But let's listen to Brian Entin weigh in on this. Credit to News Nation and Brian Entin. If you're not subscribed to them, you'll want to.
Our senior national correspondent, Brian Entin, on this. Brian, there's so little that we know about the actual investigative pieces inside the house. We have the affidavits. We have a brief narrative, like a little tippy top of the mountain, right? Affidavits are giant. There's so much that could be in them, but the probable cause doesn't have to be, right? You can just give enough to get an arrest. You don't have to give the whole narrative. That's for trial. That's for later.
So the point that Ashleigh's making here is that you don't have to, the law enforcement, people are saying, oh, there's not enough evidence. I'm uncomfortable with how much evidence there is. Well, of course, we're seeing the very tip of the iceberg. They're not showing us everything that they have. All they had to do was give us the bare minimum and get the grand jury indictment. But let's listen to Brian Entin and what he thinks about
the fact
this.
That we know that there's this device mere feet from where these girls were killed, from where that killer walked, and probably even closer because that's where Murphy was closed in. It's a significant piece of the puzzle.
It is. It's really interesting, Ashleigh. I've been hanging on your every word. And it's interesting, while you were explaining it all, I pulled my phone out, and because I thought to myself when you first started talking about it, I'm like, oh, you just put your phone on airplane mode. He probably did that, allegedly, because police say that he did that in other instances with his phone. So I put my phone on airplane mode sitting right here, and I'm no expert, but I noticed the Bluetooth stayed on.
So putting your phone on airplane mode doesn't mean that they cannot hear what you're saying. It doesn't mean that your phone isn't connecting in. So BK's phone connecting into Kaylee's Bluetooth, we heard Steve and Christy Goncalves wondering why they hadn't gotten back Kaylee's laptop and her Apple Watch and those kinds of things. Well, because of blue snarfing, because of this. Listen to this, you guys.
The Bluetooth stayed on, which made sense because when I go on the plane and I put my phone on airplane mode, I can still use my AirPods. So yes, this could be really, really significant. And you make a good point. I mean, just because it's not in any of the paperwork we've seen so far, they only really had to put the bare minimum in some of that paperwork. And the FBI was out there. We saw them every day. And they would be the ones probably going and trying to match up some of these devices. So it's really interesting.
So let me just explain to you why this is so interesting. What exactly blue snarfing is. Let me say hello to chat. Oh, is it Mardi Gras? Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. Thanks, Candy. Happy Mardi Gras. I didn't know. Marilyn, hello. Mike's here. We're going to have such a good live stream today. Bob's victim voices are often the lightest. Yeah, I think Kaylee solved her own case, and I'm going to share with you more about that in just a second. Florence says, my daughter said it does listen to your conversation. Yeah, even just try. Talk about something random with your Alexa or your Siri nearby and see if you don't get ads for it. Serious, lots of laughs. Thanks. In my 40s, can't do much anymore. Hey, Olwen, good to see you. All right, so let's keep going. Let me just share with you a little bit about this, and then we're going to go back to Bryan Entin. So Bluetooth is a hacking technique where hackers access wireless devices through a Bluetooth connection. So this can happen if you're just even using your hotspot. So if police took the Alexa that was in Kaylee's room, was BK's phone either intentionally or unintentionally linking to Kaylee's Bluetooth? So let's talk about that a little bit more. And then we're going to talk about the roommates and their text messages. And we're also going to talk about sociopaths, psychopaths, and boredom. But we know from documents that BK applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department in the fall of 2022. And what did he say in his essay for this job? He expressed an interest in helping rural law enforcement collect and analyze technological data. That is what he was interested in teaching law enforcement. So I think his interest in law enforcement and technology is extremely interesting in light of what we've learned about this young woman who he reportedly staged a break-in into her house, tended and befriended her, and then ultimately betrayed her by installing cameras, getting her Wi-Fi password, and ultimately spying on her using her own security cameras. So this is per Dateline NBC. And I do want to just grab that, but I'm going to finish with Bryan Entin, and then I'm going to show you proof of that because people have been asking for that. But let's listen in.
So here's the thing. We now know for sure that Kaylee had a Bluetooth speaker in her room. But we can also surmise, because these are students, these are university students, they've got laptops and printers and keyboards and mouses, and many of those are also Bluetooth devices. But that's just the tip of the iceberg too. There's so many more things in a home that could be Bluetooth friendly to a handshake.
Yeah, if you think about your own house, I mean, there's a ton of things with Bluetooth. We have a list we're going to go through and show you. Pull it up here. I have it on my phone. I wrote them out. AirPods, keyboards, computer mice, wireless headset, tops, iPads, tablets, Kindles, computer printers, smartphones, of course, because they have AirDrop, Apple Watches, TVs, speakers.
And who had an Apple Watch? Kaylee did.
Cable boxes, video game controllers, washers, dryers, refrigerators. I mean, if you've got one of these souped up new appliances, they've even got Bluetooth, and even air conditioners and purifiers. So it might not just be the Bluetooth speaker. I mean, you've confirmed the Bluetooth speaker, Ashleigh, but there may be way more.
There could be. And the issue, I think, is for so many of us, especially people over a certain age, is that you actually don't remember what you leave enabled and what you don't. And
this cannot just be people of a certain age. This can be people of any age of what you have enabled and what you don't. But let's, we're going to come back to this, but I want to just share this with you. Let me grab this really quick. This blue snarfing. God, we have so many packages to get through. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 packages to get through. I hope we can get through everything. Okay, so this is the blue snarfing information. Can you guys see this okay? Yep. Okay, so we're going to go through this, and then I'm going to check back in with chat, and we're going to talk about Dylan and Bethany, and those text messages that are bothering everybody, were they text messaging with each other? Yes. We're going to talk about the woman that BK was spying on. I'm going to show you receipts that he did it. And we're going to talk about patterns, the nemesis of a psychopath, and understanding why they get so bored. We have so much stuff to unpack here. So, this is a hacking technique. So, was he doing this intentionally, or was his device clicking in unintentionally? I think he knew enough about technology that the more I've looked into this, the more I've dug into this, the more I'm convinced that he would have done this intentionally, because it would have allowed him to look at everything that they were looking at online, but also their personal photos. Remember, law enforcement told us that he had photos of the victims on his cell phone. Well, what photos? Were these photos he took himself? Were these photos he downloaded from social media? Or were these photos he grabbed off of their personal computer? So this is um, it can have a maximum connectivity range of about 30 feet. I've heard up to 50 feet. So let's just think about where his phone was pinging 12 times at the 1122 King Road house. Was his phone connecting into Kaylee's Bluetooth? And is this why Steve and Christy Gonzalez have not received back her laptop, her Apple Watch, all her devices? I think it is. So I think he was sitting up in that back parking lot looking down, right? He would have seen some through the windows. But if you had a technology background enough where you could apply for a law enforcement job and and teach law enforcement about their technology, well, that tells me that he was probably intentionally linking in and getting access to photos and images. So let's talk about that for a second. Um, so blue snarfing, it's serious. It's really serious, and it's one of the most serious threats to Bluetooth-enabled devices. And we know Kaylee had one. We know her parents have not received it back. We know they're wondering why. So although Bluetooth has a very limited operating range, some people can conduct blue snarfing as far as 300 feet from an unsuspecting victim, but I don't think he had to go that far. I think he was sitting up in the apartment complex behind the house, and he was logging in to Kaylee's phone. So this would have any kind of opening for the Bluetooth. So let's say she was using it, um it will allow anything to make it discoverable. So if she used a hotspot or anything like that, he could have grabbed it. So an open Bluetooth connection makes the device discoverable, which allows hackers to access the device without the user's permission. The attacker can then grab the data off the device, such as text or email messages, calendar items, contacts lists, your personal passwords, personal media files, including photos. So, what images did he get? Let's go back to this for a second. Let me grab this. Okay. Sorry, I have a lot.
There are, certain settings on Bluetooth. Like you just said, you flicked it on and it was on, and you may not
Yeah.
even have remembered. And that's a key piece of this. It has to be on, but how do we remember out of the dozens of things in our homes what we've left on and what we've turned off?
And it can just be a hotspot. It can just be a hotspot that you just linked into, that you've like had it open in an area where he could have grabbed it. So if you guys don't know, and this is to show, I'm going to talk about I want to show this because I had people telling me they didn't understand where I got this information from. So let me just present it to you. So those of you that were here last week, we talked about this. But for those of you who haven't, let me just share this. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And let's dig into this. And then we're going to talk about the roommates and their text messages. They were text messaging each other. So this aired on both Dateline NBC, and Fox News also picked it up. So the Idaho suspect, Bryan Kohberger's grad program, had access to the crime. Whoop, I'm on the wrong one. I grabbed the wrong one. My bad. Let me grab the other one. I do. That is important, but that's not what I want to share with you right now. This is what I want. Okay, so this shows a pattern of behavior. So BK, this is from Radar Online, allegedly installed surveillance system in a female colleague's apartment before the crimes at 1122 King Road. This was a complicated endeavor. He had to stage a break-in, right? He staged a break-in to her house, didn't take anything, so she didn't feel like she had to call police. And he was tending and befriending her at the time. And then he came over and offered to install security cameras for her. And while doing that, he got her password. And from doing that, he was able to spy on her. So according to Deadline, BK became friends with the woman who went to Washington State University. He is suspected of staging the break-in and moving items around. BK supposedly didn't steal anything, so the young woman contacted him instead of police, and he installed a surveillance system on the property to spy on her. So Greg Cooper, who's a former FBI agent, claims that the incident was a step in the progression of BK's alleged crimes. He told Dateline NBC that the suspect was upping the ante. So this does show a lot of organization to stage a break-in, tend and befriend her, get her to allow you to install security cameras, and then use them to spy on her. And Greg Cooper says, I would expect he orchestrated the whole thing. He was not looking at her as a potential victim necessarily, but he orchestrated it so that she would come to him and he would be able to help her. And this is another level of power and domination and control over another person. So he got to come in as the rescuing hero. So Greg said, the hero image he can portray, you've got this problem. I'm here to solve the problem for you and to make it better for you. And what did he say when he was inside the house? What did Dylan hear him say? I'm here to help you. This is alleged. He's innocent until proven guilty, but he said, I'm here to help you. And then he did what he did. So that is the receipts. You can go look it up on Dateline. Let me grab the next package for you guys. Let's put this on here. Okay. And let me check in with chat. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more packages to go through. So let me just say hello. Hi, Becca. Hi, Bob. Hi, Brian. Hi, Brett. Let's leave me your questions, you guys. Sylvia says she's from Singapore. Sandra says hello. Mike says, I wonder if BK's parents will be caked. I don't know what caked is. Well, you mean, do you think they'll be called as witnesses? I do. I definitely do. JJ says, hey, fellow members and spectators. Yes, thank you to our mods, channel members, and subscribers for making it possible. Jan is a Texan. Welcome, Texas. Sirius Black says, we are as well, but we had so much fun in our younger days. Kelly said, I was starting to believe the other story where it's the students or the dealers, corrupt politicians. Well, there's, I talked about this about Alex Murdaugh. And if there's something like that, I'll cover it. For those of you that followed me on that case, I dug into the secret islands, to all of the stuff on Alex Murdaugh. I don't have a problem, but I just want to compare and contrast. Alex Murdaugh had a beach house, had a regular house, had a hunting lodge with a cabin and hundreds of acres, well-to-do attorney, rich, right? Okay, so that's Alex Murdaugh. And now let's look at the Idaho case. We've got roommates who are in school, who are renting a house. They don't own anything. To me, if there was something on that to bring you guys about any kind of medication running, I would bring it to you. Oh, Mike wanted to know, will the parents be called to testify? I don't know if they can make them testify, so I don't know. Chrissy's in the house. Richie says hello. Okay, so let's scroll down. May says, Jessica, I'm so naive when it comes to technology. I seriously did not know Alexa could collect information or listen to conversations. I am shocked. Test it out yourself, you guys. Test it out yourselves. Just try talking about something weird and random that you don't look up, and then see if you're offered ads for it. Jennifer says he would have had to have had their Wi-Fi password. That's a reaching story. No, that's not correct. That is not correct. That's what I was trying to tell you with the blue snarfing. They don't need your password to get it. I'm so glad you left me this comment, Jennifer, because you don't. They can get it from just you going to a hotspot. They can hack you and get it. Sirius Black says, I'm anxious to hear from his parents and sisters. I really hope they testify. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Can you restate her question? I don't know whose question you're asking about, Betty. Sorry. Let me just scroll down. I think I'm like super behind on the chat. Here we go. Okay. And Jess says it's maybe they can't afford the luxury across the country. I don't know if they can. They've been, my understanding is they've been attending the trial via like a Zoom type of call. Kami says, I don't frequent the mall, but they have added hotel and stuff there now. Right, exactly. Maybe says, I guess it's not far-fetched when people go into adjoining properties and steal others' electric. Yeah, it's not far-fetched at all. And this would explain why Kaylee's not her Bluetooth, her Apple, her stuff has not been returned back to her parents. They were wondering why. They were wondering why in an interview that they gave a couple of weeks ago. Christy and Steve didn't know why they hadn't gotten it back. Well, I think this is why. I think it's going to be used. No, you don't have to have the password. You don't. And let me just share with you a little bit more about that, because you guys don't have to take my word for it. Let me grab it. You don't have to have the password. That's what's so interesting about this. Okay, can you guys see this? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about blue. We're talking about blue snarfing. You can look it up yourselves, but you don't have to have the password. And open Bluetooth connection makes the device discoverable without the user's permission. Okay. This is from Tech Target on blue snarfing. You guys can look it up yourselves, so you don't have to take my word for it, but I've got it here for you in black and white. Let me say it one more time for the people in the back. An open Bluetooth connection makes your device discoverable. This allows hackers to access the device without the user's permission. The hacker can then grab the data off the device, including text or email messages, calendars, contact lists, and even sensitive information, including your passwords and personal media files. We know BK had photographs of one of the victims on his cell phone. Was this put in there because he took the photograph himself at the crime scene, or did he download it from the computer? So by exploiting a vulnerability in the way that Bluetooth is implemented on a mobile device, and a hacker can access information without leaving any evidence of the hacking. I'm watching my words. Operating in invisible mode protects some devices, but only to a limited extent. Devices are vulnerable to blue snarfing as long as Bluetooth is enabled and left open. Well, she had an Apple Watch. She had her laptop. So anytime she would have connected, left this open, he could have gone in and grabbed it. And then he would have had access forevermore. So blue snarfing, this can be active or passive. In an active, the hacker tries to pair their device with the victim's device without their permission. I believe that is what happened in this case, but it could also be passive. What is passive? Passive blue snarfing, or it's also called blue sniffing, occurs when the hacker only listens to the victim's Bluetooth connection and allowing them to gather data from the device. So this has been as early as 2003 that they've known about this, and they've known about the vulnerabilities. I'm not going to read you this whole article, but I just do want to just share with you that, this is really major. This is really major. And I do think that this is important to this case. Let me check in with chat, and then we're going to go through the next portion of the thing. We're going to talk about I want to talk about the CSI room. I want to talk about the roommates' text messages. And I want to share with you more information. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and give this a thumbs up. So that I hope I answered your question about needing to have a password, Jennifer. Yeah, that's what I thought too, until I started looking into this, and that is not the case. Angela says it may help that she fought until the end, and because of it, the sheet or cover was dropped from the perpetrator, maybe under the comforter, under the left side of Maddie, maybe between both of the girls. I don't know. Denise says, I'm sorry, but there are too many coincidences in this case. Call it circumstantial, but really, I think it adds up. That's the whole thing, too. This case is not going to just be one thing. It's not just going to be this blue snarfing. It's going to be the pattern of behavior with this WSU colleague that he tended, befriended, and then spied on her using her security cameras that he installed after staging a break-in. It's not just going to be the fact that his DNA is on that knife sheath. It's not just going to be the fact that his Hyundai Elantra was driving to and going from the crime scene on the night that this happened. It's not just going to be the fact that his phone was pinging in the area 12 times leading up to the crimes. It's going to be more than that. And it's going to be coincidence on coincidence. From him separating out his trash from his parents' trash and taking his trash, walking down. Remember how far apart those houses are spread out in his parents' neighborhood in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania? He had to walk a ways to put his personal trash into his neighbor's trash. I've heard some people say, yeah, it's recycling. Again, each thing individually can be explained away, but it's starting to add up. JJ says we have no privacy without going completely off the grid. No phones, no electricity. Right, exactly. And I don't want to make everybody like scared to use your devices, because most people don't have somebody like this in their periphery, but some people do. Hey, Olwen. Simply Me says Alexa is always spying. We've heard people test it out yourselves. You don't have to take my word for it. So Kaylee says, I bet he was listening to them the entire time he stalked them those 12 plus times. Well, that's what I'm wondering too. That's what I'm wondering too. If he was sitting up in that back parking lot, listening, watching, going through their text messages, going through their personal photos, personal videos, and becoming more and more obsessed and fixed in on what was going on in the 1122 King Road house. First I thought he was just sitting up there in those rooms upstairs with the lights on upstairs. It would have been like a goldfish bowl. But I think it's more than that. I think just being how technically savvy he was, the fact that he has this pattern of doing this with this WSU colleague, right? This colleague that he tended and befriended and ultimately betrayed her so he could spy on her. It is, to me, very, very likely that he would have used this technology. This was his jam. This is what he applied to do with the Pullman Police Department. He wanted to teach police officers about technology. So yeah, I agree. You're welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe, like, share, and please leave me a comment in the comment section below. Mike says, years ago, you used to be able to take out your SIM card and battery. It's not like that. Now your phone is never off. And Angela says, in a way, I think she's saying Kaylee contributed to solving her own case. I believe they are not coincidences. Yeah, I agree. I think Kaylee, just like Paul, sending that Snapchat video proving that Alex Murdaugh was at the dog kennels after he swore up and down that he wasn't. I think that law enforcement, and that's why they were tap dancing around that reporter's question. I think law enforcement is going to use this technology and prove that he was at this house. Tara says people don't realize how dangerous hotspot and Bluetooth devices are. You're right. They don't know. But they really can be. Thank you so much, Pam. I always forget to ask people to give us this a thumbs up, but please do. Jules says, A person needs to turn off Bluetooth when not in use. It's easy for people to track you. Yeah. Very, very easy. And we have so much stuff. We're going to get into the roommates' text messages in just a second, but I want to dig into this a little bit. Mike said it's funny. BK claims he was just driving around, but he knew the area well enough not to need his phone or maps on. He knew that house and the area, how to get out. He studied it, in my opinion. And he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. I just want to make that clear. But I am talking about this case in terms of BK because he's the only one who's been indicted. He's the only one who's been arrested. He's the only one sitting in jail for this crime. He's the only one that had a DNA match in the octillion, not million, not billion, but octillion. That's more than there are people on the planet, I think, to the snap on that knife sheath. It's just a lot of coincidences. Angela says Kaylee had a strong and determined personality. It went until the end. Blessings to her and all of their family. This is such a tragedy. And Jewel says it's obvious BK knew everything about the victims. Well, yeah, because he was watching them, right? But he was also hacking into their information. So he probably knew more about Kaylee than probably some of the roommates that were living in that house. You would need a purpose to drive that way. It wasn't like their house was on the main road. Yeah, great point. Marilyn said, how could BK not have realized that any of these Bluetooth devices seized on his phone wouldn't the house? It would be, wouldn't he leave his phone in the car? Well, I think on the night of the crimes, he did turn his phone off. He did turn it off, right? Thank you, Krissa. And Sarah says he knew this area. All right, we're going to come back to chat in a second because you guys have so many great comments. All opinions are welcome. You don't have to agree with me, but let me just go through. I have so much stuff to get into. So I showed you the receipts of him tending and befriending. The reason I'm showing you that is because it shows a pattern of behavior. And that's what all of this is. It's all about organization and planning. It's unlikely that he just woke up on November 13th of 2022 and just decided to do away with 4 people. He would have had other stalking behaviors leading up to the November 13th, 2022 crime. I'm going to talk about the roommates' text messages in just a second. They were texting during the crimes. I believe he had broken into other people's homes in the past to do creepy things. And I will always wonder, tell me what you think about this. We know Xana's father changed the locks on her bedroom door on the days leading up to this crime. I'll always wonder if he was inside that house moving things around. So this brings me back to Dylan's statement where she said she had heard someone say, "It's okay, I'm here to help you." And I do believe that BK did. It was BK that said this to her. And if you feel differently, that's okay. I believe he said this to Xana. And in my opinion, it shows he had a pattern of doing this, offering to help someone like he did the WSU female colleague. But when his intention was to do anything but help, I think it's evil. So as you know, BK's doctoral program at the Washington State University maintains access to a crime lab database of police body cam footage at 5 different police departments. And I had so many people asking me about that I thought, let me just show the receipts. Let me see if I pulled that one. Yeah, let me show this to you guys. Okay, because I've had so many people asking me, and so I know I have showed this before, but I just want to show you guys, I'm not just making this up. I am showing you a pattern of behavior. Okay, so this is from Fox News, but it was on Dateline NBC also. And I show journalistic sources because they vet their information. Can you guys see that okay? Yeah, okay. So let me just show this really quick, and then we're going to get into, I have a bunch of stuff to get into, including the fact that the roommates were texting with each other. Okay, so for those of you that didn't miss this, let me just very quickly go over it. If you want more information on it, you can go through my live streams that I did over the last couple of weeks. So his PhD program at Washington State University maintains access to a crime lab database. Okay. It's police body cam footages as well as live streams from security cameras, both on campus at WSU, off campus, and it has access to 5 different police departments. This CSI lab with access to 5 different police departments was located on the same floor of WSU as the criminology department, where BK was a teaching assistant and he was also in the doctoral program, right? So a source who works for the university, who has direct knowledge about this, is warning that these tools in the wrong hands could have allowed BK to view unredacted crime scene images, potential videos of more graphic things I'm not going to say, but you guys can read that, live streams of surveillance cameras. So imagine this. You could call in a noise complaint and then watch on the police body cam footage at WSU in the crime lab, watch the response of the police officers. Now, Moscow PD was not one of the 5 police departments, but you can just see somebody who likes to peep, who likes to stalk, who likes to spy on people. Now, WSU is saying that BK was not part of this program, but he was in the doctoral program at Washington State University, where they maintain this crime lab. So I'm very skeptical that he would not have been accessing this. And I really feel strongly that WSU would have a good reason to deny this. Maybe they're telling the truth, maybe they're not. I feel like it's a problem, and so does the source. So the source that works for the university and has direct knowledge of the department is blowing the whistle on this. So this WSU Complex Social Interaction Lab, the CSI lab is what it's called, and the Division of Governmental Studies and Services are research entities for PhD students, which BK was a PhD student. So this whole thing of he didn't have access to the lab, well, he was a PhD student, he was a teaching assistant, and this lab was located on his floor. The idea that he wouldn't have been accessing it, to me, is just very hard to believe. So live feeds, and they literally showed the reporter the live feeds. You can see them here. See the image of the different live feeds that you could get access to, and you could zoom in to see somebody's face. So more than 5 police departments share this body cam video with the CSI lab database, according to WSU University, and one of them was the Pullman Police Department, according to the source. So it's very, very hard to believe that somebody that was in the PhD program, that liked to peep and stalk, that had a history of it, would not have been accessing this. Now, maybe he used someone else's ID badge, and we know that IDs were found inside a glove, inside a box at the Albrightsville, Pennsylvania home. And we know one of the IDs belonged to one of the victims. We don't know who the other IDs belong to. So WSU Phil Wheeler has pushed back on this. He said that BK never had access to any footage from the CSI controlled lab at Washington State University. He says access to that facility is strictly controlled. All research assistants must complete a background check, a FBI criminal justice level 2 certification, be fingerprinted by the FBI, and sign a confidentiality agreement. Okay, so they're pushing back on it, but it says right here, doctoral program it's maintained by the program he was in. He was a teaching assistant in their PhD program. So he would have had access to this. I can understand why they want to say that, but I believe he did have access to this. I just find it so hard. We're going to talk about the roommates, and we're going to talk about their text messages in just a second. But I just am not buying that what would have been like just absolutely so tantalizing for someone who liked to stalk. I'm not buying that he wouldn't have accessed it. Maybe he didn't use his own ID to access it, and that may be why they collected those IDs. But So it's really disturbing that people are being given access to this. So you could watch somebody pull into a restaurant, get out of their car. You could call in a noise complaint and then watch the police follow up on it. And according to the source, a student can apply for access to the CSI lab online just by filling out a brief questionnaire. So a very different story from the inside source than we're getting from the spokesperson. But the spokesperson from WSU is absolutely denying that he could have had access to it. Absolutely denying. So I just want to put that on the record. I do like to give both sides. But the inside source, this goes back, claimed to have direct knowledge of multiple individuals who have not gone through the vetting or training to enter the facility and work as part of their duties, including the technical support staff. So he's showing that. And what did BK want to teach to the Pullman Police Department? Technology and crimes, right? It's hard to believe that he, as a PhD student, was not accessing this. So what else was he able to get into? What do you guys think? Let me check in with chat really quickly. And I just don't want to get too behind on chat. And then we're going to dig into the roommates. And they were texting. I'm going to show you. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Marilyn said, wouldn't PK have realized that Bluetooth devices would have hooked up to his phone? Would he have left his phone in the car? Well, I think initially when he was going to the house, he probably wasn't planning to do away with these people. I think that came on over time. So I think that the fact that his phone was linking in 12 times, and once his phone was linking in, even if you put it in airplane mode, just like Brian Entin just told you, your phone will still link. Denise says she believes that Maddie was the target. Maybe Kaylee was a way to get to her. I don't know. I was leaning toward Maddie too, until I found out that Kaylee had posted a picture of herself. That picture where she's got Maddie sitting on her shoulders and Ethan's got his arm around Xana, and Bethany and Dylan are on either side. That iconic picture that was taken that day. Kaylee posted that around 8 p.m. on November 12th of 2022, just hours before Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana were all done away with. Yeah, the Bluetooth will continue trying to search for its connection. So if Kaylee's Bluetooth speaker, so that's probably why he switched it off on the night of what he did. If Kaylee's Bluetooth speaker's unique identifier shows up in BK's phone, that's proof he was there. Absolutely, Rick. Absolutely. And that's why I think Kaylee's parents are, wondering why they didn't get her stuff back. This is probably why. Jane says these people are cray-cray. SD says, hey, SD, how does anyone know if he became interested in them before he went to Washington? Well, that's the big question, right? Did he move to Washington because he was focused in on someone? Or was it to pursue his PhD program and he got obsessed with somebody afterward? Mike says, I'm sure Kaylee didn't have anything blocked. I bet it was connected to her devices. I don't think most people would know to block stuff. I think he went in for her and things went off the rails. And she wants to know your thoughts on that, Cirrus, if you're still in the chat, Cirrus Block. Angel says he may have had some mental illness. By his psyche may be high. We're going to talk about psychopathy and the games they like to play, and again, just going through some basic profiling. And Josh says, very disturbed mind. I think that will be told in time. And Jane says it's scary. Cirrus Black says, only because she had moved out and came back that night that I'm starting to think it was Maddie he was obsessed with. And Kami says, I think if Kaylee had slept in her room and not in Maddie's room, she perhaps would be here. Same with Xana and Ethan with the DoorDash delivery. Yeah, I think so too. And I'm glad that the roommates did not go out, because if they had, they wouldn't be here. Kami says, I think Kaylee had slept in her. Oh, I just did that one. Sorry, y'all. Mike says, I'm very curious. He alleged night K-bar in April. Yeah, he ordered the K-bar. For those of you that missed last week's live stream, he ordered the K-bar from Amazon in April prior to what happened. And I showed you guys all of the searches that law enforcement did to not only prove that he ordered it on Amazon, but also prove how he paid for it. So if you haven't seen my last week's live stream, you'll want to check that next. DM says his plan went off the rails. Owen says, I'm just about able to send a text. Yeah, I understand. I think most of us are in that. Mike thinks Maddie Mogan was his obsession. SD says, I bet he was obsessed with Maddie. So you guys are leaning towards Maddie, it seems like. I had read somewhere Maddie was at WSU for a week before she moved to Idaho University. I tried to look for the source. I couldn't find it. Boy, if you find it, please let us know. All right, so let's go talk about the roommates and their text messages, you guys. Let me grab that. So they were texting, and then we're going to talk about sociopaths and how they get bored. Let me see. Let me grab this. No, that's not the right one. All right, let me grab this one. All right, so we're going to talk about this, but let's go through the roommates for a second. I want to talk about Dylan and Bethany. Okay, so Dylan and Bethany, they were texting during the incident, during the crimes. Let me pull this up really quick. Okay, so I just want to tell you where you guys can go look this up. Hold on one second. Okay, so there are reports. You can look up, type in Bryan Kohberger report claims surviving students were awake and texting while roommates, and you can pull the article right up, and it says, but at the end of the article, if you read it all the way to the bottom, it says, we cannot confirm if this information is true due to the gag order. But I think it's very possible that the roommates were texting in regards to something that was, unusual, but maybe something that they didn't prove was not dangerous. Like, for example, they could have been texting, Xana and Ethan are fighting. Can you hear them? Xana's crying. Should I go check on her? Ethan's here. Maybe we should leave them alone. Or maybe just complaining that Murphy the dog was annoying them by barking. So I don't think either one of them would have had any reason to suspect that their roommates were being done away with at that point. And most people would not have just jumped to this conclusion out of the gate. And I shared with you last week that Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander, that in this case, Travis had roommates that he lived with. And that crime scene was very, very graphic. I'm watching my words. Travis's roommates didn't find him for days, plural days. And this crime scene had lots of blood. It would have had some decomp. It would have started. So did his roommates do this crime? No, they didn't. Jodi Arias did it. So let's talk about the bystander effect. And then we're going to discuss games that psychopaths like to play to keep themselves entertained. And I'm going to check back in with chat in just a second. So according to Psychology Today, two psychologists, Bibb Latane and John Darley, they popularized the concept of a bystander effect. And this happened after 1964, a 28-year-old woman was done away with using a knife outside her apartment. At the time, I'm watching my words, it was reported that dozens of neighbors failed to step in to help her, even though she was calling for help, or called the police. And so they started doing this study on bystander effects. And what it says is it has two factors in the bystanders. One is a diffusion of responsibility, and two is social influence. So the diffusion of responsibility, that basically means that if there's more people present, the less personal responsibility that people will feel to take action. And then the social influence means that the individuals monitor the behavior of those around them. And this may be why the two roommates were checking with each other to see how they're going to determine how they're going to act. And I'm going to talk about BK's phone records in just a second. But with 5 adults present in the house and Dylan being the youngest and the newest roommate, she could have easily have been checking in with Bethany to see what to do, how to handle it. Remember, she thought she heard Kaylee playing with Murphy the dog upstairs. So if there was a problem, then maybe being the youngest and newest roommate, even though she saw a stranger in the house and locked her door, she, may not have thought a whole lot about it. Right? So that's what I feel. I feel like there was somewhat of a bystander effect. I think that we're going to see that in the text messages. But I want to go into Dylan's statement. Hold on one second. All right, we're going to talk about Kaylee's Bluetooth some more, and we're going to talk about the IDs that were found in just a second. But I want to go through psychopaths and also the type of games that they like to play. Let me grab this. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about boredom. Damned if you do, bored if you don't. Okay, can you guys see that okay? All right, so let's talk about this piece by piece. Let's just go through this really quick because what I'm trying to show you guys is I want to show you a pattern of behavior and how this all fits together. So psychopaths get bored, and the thought of a bored psychopath is scary. So it's kind of an ongoing mood because they don't have the same feelings. And you'll recall that BK described himself as feeling like he didn't have the same feeling. So boredom is an ongoing mood in a psychopath's life, one that they're constantly trying to relieve, and relieve it they will in one way or another. And I think this may have been what happened to Buddy the dog. I think BK was feeling upset about getting that October 21st email from his professor telling him that he was failing. And I think he was enraged and may have wanted to distract himself. I think it's also why he planted the cameras in the WSU female colleague's apartment. I think this would have been interesting for him to plan out, right? Plan out. He would have fantasized about it. He would have thought about it. And remember, fantasy is a big part of a psychopath's life. They don't have emotions like you and I do. They don't always think about the consequences. That's why people are saying, well, he would have been too smart to do this. This whole thing of psychopaths have like higher intelligence than other people is just simply not the case. And fantasy is a big part of it. And the fact that they don't have empathy makes them more likely to make mistakes because they don't have emotions. They don't feel fear like you and I do. So they don't always think about the consequences of their behavior. So after he did this crime, of course, law enforcement, they're going to look for any bizarre behaviors that they can find that he did with other people. And this installation of cameras into this young woman's apartment, phoning up, staging a break-in, this is something that law enforcement will definitely be using to show a pattern of behavior. But he didn't think it all the way through. If he had thought it all the way through, he wouldn't have done this to begin with. So he was probably bored and looking for something entertaining. So he planned out and very organized way to stage a break-in. He tended and befriended this WSU colleague, installed her security cameras, being her, I'm here to help you, and then spied on her. So this is why I believe he was accessing Kaylee's Bluetooth. So why do psychopaths become bored so easily? Let's go through that. So psychopaths become bored because they don't feel anything. They don't have any emotions. They make mistakes because they don't think through step by step what the consequences can always be, because they don't have feelings like fear. They don't worry about the consequences the way that you and I do. So they require intense stimulation to feel anything at all, to become excited, to have fun. This requires a great deal of intense stimulation for a psychopath. And so nothing really feels satisfying or holds their interest for that long. So they have this, it's really common to have this meaningless, destructive drive of medication addiction. I'm watching my words here. And we know he did have issues with medicine. And it would have been another way for him to stimulate himself, to maybe feel something, to feel excited, and maybe even have fun with it. So for most of us, boredom is usually something that it's part of life. And it passes, right? But for the psychopath, it doesn't just go away, because the psychopath doesn't have a range of emotions. They just feel this sense of dissatisfaction with their life in general. They're bored. And this is one of the reasons that psychopaths enjoy games so much. And this is probably, now BK's innocent until proven guilty, but this is probably why BK would have planned out the phony break-in into this young woman's house, tended and befriended her. To him, it was a game. It would have been entertaining. It would have been fun. It would have made him feel powerful. It would have made him feel, right? So he got her Wi-Fi password. He installed those security cameras and then used them to spy on her. And this would have given him a great feeling of superiority over her every time he logged into those. And then he had the entertainment of watching her and again feeling those feelings of superiority and power over her, watching her in her most intimate and private moments when she doesn't know that he's watching her. So we know that they can experience boredom, and it's a complex emotional state. It's both chronic and acute, and psychopathic boredom is described as continually restless and dysphoric feeling. And when BK was posting about his visual snow, we could see from his posts that he felt like he described himself as feeling as like a sack of meat or a meat sack, and viewing other people as meat sacks. Very much depersonalization of himself and other human beings. He talked about not being able to relate to his parents, specifically his father, even though he said that his father was a nice person. He didn't feel anything. So he would have felt empty, bored, and restless. So I believe that his fixation on one of the victims would have been entertaining for him. I believe his target was either Maddie or Kaylee. And I'm wondering if it was Kaylee and, related to the accessing her Bluetooth, but it could have been Maddie too. But accessing her Bluetooth to spy on her, that would have given him a feeling of superiority and power over Kaylee. So boredom is felt intensely during, and psychopaths are known to be narcissistic. Have you ever had a narcissistic person in your life? But when they're exhausting their narcissistic supply, this is, one of the reasons that I think this would have, given him supply, this feeling of power and superiority over other people. And we see that even in his facial expressions, right? In almost every picture, he's got his lips pursed and his eyes are, and he looks like, because he feels superior over other people, in my opinion. So the sense of psychopaths exhausting their existing sources, which in this case, he exhausted his victim and then he was searching for his next target. And that's why I find it very hard to believe that he would not have been accessing the PhD criminology program at WSU. I just don't, that would have just been too good for somebody with this type of pathology, with this type of psychology, to just pass up. So I think he would have watched them. I think he would have responded to the body cams. I think that the victim's IDs may have included IDs to allow him access into that WSU CSI room. I think that's why this informant was trying to alert the press about this. So when a psychopath is bored, he may recognize his grandiosity as only an illusion. And this recognition would have been uncomfortable. This is according to Reed Malloy, who's a PhD graduate. So he would have had this grandiosity type of feeling and this superiority kind of feeling that was something that the female students felt like he was doing to them, right? They felt, remember the students that he was grading, they said they were complaining to the professor that he was grading them differently than the male students, this would have made him feel superior by grading them differently than the male students. This would have made him feel superior over them. And it would have been a game. It would have been entertaining to him. It would have been entertaining when they came in to talk about it with him. And it would have helped with his boredom and his devaluing of himself. Let me catch up with chat for just a second and see where we are. And then we're going to go back into it. Rick says, I always leave my phone's Bluetooth off unless I need it. And I bet more people will after watching this. Kaylee says, I think if he didn't see Kaylee Goncalves in her room, I think he would have snuck out. I think it was Maddie, and then stuff unexpectedly happened. Angela says, may by him committing the crime, maybe it's decreased and he can't defend himself. Yesterday, I was listening to a psychology frenzy interview, and her theory is very interesting. Oh, I would definitely love to find out more about that. If you want to share, drop me a comment. That'd be great. DM says, Mike, see, I can believe he was surveilling all of the females. He was at the house prior to the crime, in my opinion. So many people think that he was at the house. Put a 1 in the chat if you think he was at the house prior to this happening. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that November 13th was his first time inside the house. I think Xana was right. I think somebody was inside her room, and I think that's why her dad changed the locks. And Jazz says, I don't think he bargained on the 2 girls in the same room, in the same bed, that I think it would have thrown him off. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and give this video a thumbs up. I'm going to go into a couple other things in just a second. Krista says, I think that he's the perp, in my opinion. SD says, I wonder if his Wi-Fi attempted to connect with the girl's Wi-Fi, or if it in fact did connect with the Wi-Fi, shows he previously connected to the house Wi-Fi. Right. He was sitting up in that parking lot 12 times doing something. You know, you could only see so much through the window. And for somebody that knows so much about technology that they want to, they applied for a job with the with the Pullman Police Department in 2022 to teach them about technology. He would have definitely known how. Sirius Black says, you're probably right. I just had a feeling it was Kaylee at first, but I'm leaning toward Maddie now. Angela says, everything could link with topic you were discussing today about electronic device Bluetooth. Yeah, and I think this is why Kaylee's parents were upset about, but I think there's a reason they've hung on to Kaylee's devices. They need it for the trial. Plus a little practice for him, Mimi says. Hey, Mimi. Kami says, serious. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Kaylee Goncalves' injuries were worse because she woke up and was more aware of what was happening. Kami says those poor rooms were so small, there was nowhere for her to go. For those of you that don't know, Kaylee was found, according to her parents, sitting up against the wall. So she had woken up. She was trying to defend herself. Jules said, I think he has a fixation on Maddie. Seeing friends, males go to that house would have fueled his anger. Rick says, I think BK is the perpetrator who thought he could pull this off without getting caught. I think so too. I think that remember, like I just wanted, that's why I wanted to go through the psychology of how psychopaths think. The fact that he thought this way, he would have felt like, because he doesn't have feelings of fear, because psychopaths don't feel fear like you feel fear, I feel fear. They don't go through all the consequences of their behavior. And this is how they end up getting caught. Esty said, I heard it was a Wi-Fi connection, not Bluetooth. And Josh says, I don't think Kay had been drinking as much as Maddie. I don't know. I know that night, guess what was on Twitch? That grub truck video was on Twitch for anyone to see. And Kaylee felt like she had a stalker. That's why she asked John Jack Showalter to walk them down from the corner club. Kaylee, remember, her parents said at the beginning that Kaylee felt like somebody was watching her that night. Sylvia just says, what did Maddie say to Adam? I was on this too. I was all over this. What did Maddie say to Adam? But after going through all of the information, I think this may have had something to do with why Kaylee and Jack D had broken up, and it was probably very important to Kaylee that night, but I don't think it's relevant to what happened inside the house. But anything can be attributed to that little tiny thing. I told Adam everything, just like anything can be attributed and has been attributed to the roommates and the 8 hours. Yes, Kaylee had a Bluetooth speaker. Yes, she did. Mike says it's going to put him in jail. Hey, Margaret, welcome. Tell me where you're from if you're just joining us. Kami said, agreed when I watched the food truck video and she was having such a hard time just walking straight and getting her balance. Yeah, she had they both were intoxicated, without a doubt. No doubt about it. Bryan said, hello, how are you tonight? Thank you for putting in the hard work and time you do to put your content. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Bryan. I really appreciate that. I do put a lot of time and energy into researching out the information for you guys, and I'm trying to bring you credible information and some, things that are my opinion, but at least are based on credible information and based on credible information. It's not just some random person that hasn't been vetted calling in to tell me this or that or claim this or that, because I could have a friend call in and pose as anybody and answer the phone and talk to them. So I just want to thank you for noticing that I am trying to do credible information with you guys. Tanya says he's smart enough to know all of that, but drove his own car to the crime scene. Yeah. What alternative did he have, Tanya? What alternative did he have to get to that crime scene? He could have rented a car, which would have been traced right back to him, and he wouldn't have had control over the car. He couldn't have cleaned it as meticulously as he did. And we know law enforcement that were surveilling him at his parents' Albrightsville, Pennsylvania house had to sit there and watch him meticulously clean that car, every inch of it, they described in the affidavit, wearing medical grade gloves in the middle of the night. So what alternative did he have besides dextering out his own car and driving it? Renting a car would have been traced right back to him, and he couldn't have cleaned it as many times. He wouldn't have had control. And if you've learned anything about BK, it's that he liked to have control. This is why he was peeping in on a innocent WSU colleague. It was all about control. So would he have wanted to control the crime scene? Yes. Would he have wanted to control his vehicle? Yes. That's why he drove his own car. That's why I believe he drove his own car. Great, great comment. I really appreciate it. Remember, BK, you guys we have to let go of the fact that all of these guys are Hannibal Lecter level high IQ people. He has an average intelligence, no social intelligence at all from everything that we've heard. So very little social intelligence, and just average level intelligence and no sense of emotion. So did he feel fearful? No, he wouldn't have felt frightened at all. He wouldn't have felt scared at all. He would have felt no fear at all. So, yeah. Remember, BK approached Pullman, Washington to assist them with tech. That's right. He approached them. He applied for a job with them to teach them tech and data tracking. This is why I believe he used blue snarfing to access Kaylee's phone and lots of images. Need to know says, I wonder if the woman he set up cameras for is the Asian woman in his neighborhood had seen him with. That is his neighbor downstairs. I don't think it's the same person. This was a colleague at WSU that he did this to. If his phone was attempting to connect to their Wi-Fi, that would show up in his phone data. I don't know how it all shows up, but it would definitely show up on Kaylee's data. Kaylee's data for sure would show it. Occam's razor. All of these other theories are too complicated. Yeah, I've seen people just twisting themselves into knots trying to give me other theories. The tunnels under the house. The house was torn down. There's no tunnels. There's no tunnels. If there was tunnels under the house, I would have told you. I would have made a video about it. I would have gotten so many views if I would have done video on tunnels under the house. I didn't do it because you guys deserve the truth. You guys deserve credible information. Tara says, please explain to me one more time how they're supposed to know what he said. I'm here to help you. I don't fully comprehend that one bit. This was in the affidavit, and according to Dylan, she thought that she heard a male voice say, "I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you." So that's who else was in the house? Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, Maddie, Bethany, Dylan, and the man wearing the mask, wearing all black with bushy eyebrows, with an athletic build, but not muscular. Yeah. Bryan had his phone off. Right. And like I explained at the beginning, that doesn't mean that your Bluetooth doesn't connect. Your Bluetooth can still connect to the thing. Let me show that once more because I do have some new people joining us. Let me just play this one more time for you so you guys can understand what the heck I'm talking about. Let me grab it and I will show it to you one more time because you guys do deserve credible information. I do want to bring it to you. Let me just grab this. And this is Brian Entin, Ashleigh Banfield, and another journalist.
And she asked a question of the authorities who were conducting the news conference. And man, oh man, did that girl have insight to ask a clever question. Have a look.
Curious if the Wi-Fi hotspot has been tapped at all. It's possible if the suspect had their phone on them, it may have pinged off the Wi-Fi in the residence. Has that been checked on at all?
As I stated, our investigation is looking at every avenue of every piece of evidence that we can.
He does not want to say, and I don't blame him. He does not want to say, but let's continue on together, shall we?
Every avenue of every piece of evidence. Okay, I get it. They're not going to say it there. And they didn't say it for 4 months. But now we know. Source close to the investigation saying a Bluetooth speaker was discovered by the police in Kaylee's room. I want to bring in our senior national correspondent, Bryan Entin, on this. Bryan, there's so little that we know about the actual investigative pieces inside the house. We have the affidavits. We have a brief narrative, like a little tippy top of the mountain, right? Affidavits are giant. There's so much that could be in them, but the probable cause doesn't have to be, right? You can just give enough to get an arrest. You don't have to give the whole narrative. That's for trial. That's for later. So the fact that we know that there's this device mere feet from where these girls were killed, from where that killer walked, and probably even closer because that's where Murphy was closed in. It's a significant piece of the puzzle.
It is. It's really interesting, Ashleigh. I've been hanging on your every word. And it's interesting, while you were explaining it all, I pulled my phone out. And because I thought to myself, when you first started talking about it, I'm like, oh, you just put your phone on airplane mode. He probably did that, allegedly, because police say that he did that in other instances with his phone. So I put my phone on airplane mode sitting right here. And I'm no expert, but I noticed the Bluetooth stayed on.
That's right. So that's why I wanted to talk to you guys about blue snarfing. And if you're just joining me, you'll want to back this up and watch from the beginning. But why I wanted to talk to you about blue snarfing, because your Bluetooth stays on. Stays on.
The Bluetooth stayed on, which made sense because when I go on the plane and I put my phone on airplane mode, I can still use my AirPods. So yes, this could be really, really significant. And you make a good point. I mean, just because it's not in any of the paperwork we've seen so far, they only really had to put the bare minimum in some of that paperwork. And the FBI was out there. We saw them every day. And they would be the ones probably going and trying to match up some of these devices. So it's really interesting.
And it just goes back to what IDs were found in that glove inside a box inside the Albrightsville, Pennsylvania home. Let me check in with chat and then we'll go back to this in just a second. Let me see where we're at. Mike says, yeah, BK was book smart, but not necessarily physically smart. He wanted to do this, but he couldn't resist. There was no other way but to use his car. Yeah. And I just think we just need to let go of the idea of the Hannibal Lecter style, highly intelligent person. A lot of these people that do these crimes may have average or even below average intelligence. And I think his intelligence was probably just average. but his social intelligence was really low. And we know this from his visual snow, where he's talking about depersonalization. He's talking about not feeling feelings. So he wouldn't have felt fearful. He wouldn't have felt nervous. Some of the things that would have given you a lot of anxiety and stress. So I wouldn't have done that. It's not going to give somebody like him a lot of anxiety. That's why I wanted to go through the psychology of psychopathy, just so you guys could understand kind of how he's thinking about all of this. Anyway, thanks for that, Mike. Let me scroll down and catch up with chat here. Joel says the Bluetooth is an open portal in your computer, including Facebook, Wi-Fi, Messenger. Exactly. SD says, I am surprised BK didn't encrypt or use an advanced VPN when talking. He could have, but law enforcement would still be able to access her device and be able to the FBI would be able to nail that down. Dog Lover says, new Wi-Fi appliances listen to. Yes, they do. Alexa comments all the time without us asking a question. And we've heard this, right? If you think that your devices aren't listening when you guys have them off, just try talking about something really weird, like something you never talk about, skydiving or just something random, and then just see if you're offered an ad on that in the next 24 hours. Jewel says, do not leave saved passwords on your computer. Micro Kimmy says, I was a guest on LTL. I don't know what that is. Giving my expert opinion on this exactly. I agree with you on the Bluetooth. Thank you. I don't know what LTL is, but boy, that's great. I didn't know you had a background in this, Micro Kimmy. But we're going to do a members only live stream in a few minutes. So maybe you would be willing to come up and talk to us about it. Blissful Elixir says they know he shut his phone off so it wouldn't connect. Yeah, I think that's why he turned the phone off. Because he was connecting. Bluetooth is a thirsty girl. I like that. Anyway, ouch, my ears. Please don't shout. Oh, I don't know what that is. Dog Lover says, I can buy he's guilty, but I also find some actions at the grub truck sus, including the Xana shouts. I have not heard any Xana shouts. I've watched the video. Don't know what you're talking about. I do think that, I've even with in the JonBenet Ramsey case, people attributed those mumbles at the very end when Patsy hung up from that 911 call and they said they heard certain words. I listened to that repeatedly. I boosted the audio for you guys on the interview that I did with Roman. We could not hear what people perceived to hear. So I don't know. I think sometimes you can help people hear what you want them to hear, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. SD says, to be honest, there's no such thing as privacy anymore. If you have smart devices active in your home, especially Bluetooth, Siri, Alexa, even if you activate privacy settings. Bob Williams says, I ask what she's wearing and if she likes certain types, and she usually is quiet. Oh my gosh. Hey, Maria, good to see you. Maria says, there are offices everywhere in the world with big rooms just for hackers to get all of your info. Scary world we live in. Not even safe in your own. Yeah, exactly. It is really scary. Mike says in BK survey, he asked criminals questions. They told him to shut his phone off. Bryan wasn't a genius. Yeah. Hey, unspoken heart stillness. Feel like we live in glass houses. We do. We definitely do. You're right. Jane says, I'm going to have to go, guys. That's all right. No worries. Mama Chi says, I agree about the Bluetooth also. I'm perfectly imperfect says he would need the password. No, I already went over that. He would not need the password. He would not have needed the password. They can hack it without it. If you guys need to back up the video, I already went over it. I don't want to do it again. But you don't need a password. Hey, Glitters and Gold. Good to see you. Krista says, I asked Alexa if she spied and she replied, no, I'm designed to protect your privacy. Yeah, I'd be like, sure, Jan. Mike says, I'm perfectly imperfect. I'm sure it wasn't blocked. No password needed. Yeah, and you can, even if you have a password, they can still get around it. Was he Kaylee's stalker? I don't know, but we know she said that she had one. The user said he also apparently studied digital technology previously, so would have known all about it. Exactly. That's what he applied for the job with the Pullman PD. He wanted to teach police departments about technology. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Let's finish watching the end of this.
So here's the thing. We now know for sure that Kaylee had a Bluetooth speaker in her room. But we can also surmise, because these are students, these are university students, they've got laptops and printers and keyboards and mouses, and many of those are also Bluetooth devices. But that's just the tip of the iceberg too. There's so many more things in a home that could be Bluetooth friendly to a handshake.
And I just want to say thank you to Micro Kimmy. Thank you so much for the $9.99. I really appreciate it. And she says, I believe he had a listening device in that potted plant in the kitchen with spilled dirt next to it. I also believe he blocked their phones from calling when they tried to call Jack a bunch of times. I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting theory. I don't know. But it's really, really sad. The whole thing is really, really sad. JJ says, I believe this is why his defense keeps stalling for time. He doesn't have an answer to refute this. Yeah, and the latest motion was the defense team wants to move the case to another jurisdiction. But to me, the case is national, even international. So I don't think just moving the case to another jurisdiction is going to do anything. And the prosecution pushed back on that, and they were like, no, we want a start date. We want a trial date set. Then we can talk about where we're going to have it. It does feel like there's a little bit of stalling going on there. Hey, Pam, good to see you. Mike says his digital data is going to get him. Unspoken Heart Still says he stopped driving around after the crimes and put it in the garage. Well, we don't know. Did he keep driving around? Ann Taylor said he loved to take long drives. Did he keep taking long drives? Mike said Ann's defense is she doesn't understand how they found BK, but they can't explain how the DNA is there. They just want to try and get it thrown out. I don't. And the DNA that Ann wants to talk about, Ann Taylor's BK's defense attorney, she doesn't want to talk about the cheek swab. She doesn't want to talk about that. She wants to talk about the DNA that led law enforcement to BK, because that's a lot, because that was taken out of the garbage can. It was matched to his dad, but that's not the DNA that the prosecution's going to use at the trial. Prosecution is going to use the cheek swab. She also wants to get that familial ancestry DNA from the prosecution. She wants all of the information, because what is Ann Taylor looking for? She needs a straw man. She needs a straw man. If you don't know what a straw man is, it's what a criminal defense attorney says, no, my client didn't do it because this person did it, this straw man. In the Casey Anthony case, they used the straw man argument very, very effectively. Jose Baez got up and said George Anthony was guilty of doing it. And tell me again how lawyers don't ever lie. Casey was found not guilty. So, there's that. But I mean, I think a lot of people, I don't know very many people who believe George Anthony did it. Right. So she is she wants access to the ancestry DNA that the FBI got, because she's looking for a straw man. She wants to say, well, BK didn't do it. It had to be this poor person who used this ancestry site to find out what their heritage was. Maybe they were adopted or something like that. And she wants to use that to link back to BK and use that as a straw man, in my opinion. Glitters and Gold said, isn't it strange that their COD didn't match up? Who said that? I haven't seen anything that said it didn't match up. I'm not, am I like are you talking about a different case? Did I miss something in the chat? Because I haven't seen anything that said that it didn't match up. Hey, Jamie, good to see you. If you haven't subscribed, please do like, share, and give us a thumbs up. And leave me a comment in the comment section. Caber said, I think the reason the state is so confident and asked for the capital case, watching my words, because of strong digital proof. Exactly. They feel very confident. Yeah. Thanks, Tara. I appreciate it. I do really try to bring you guys credible information. I feel like you deserve credible information. Life as a Beach says his level of obsession caused him to be careless in covering his tracks. Right. And remember, he doesn't feel fear like you do, like I do. So him going through all the consequences and having a lot of anxiety about what could happen, he wouldn't have felt those emotions. Olwen says it's such a scary thought. I agree. I mean, but that's not the first go-to. The first go-to is going to be sodium pentothal. If it gets that far, we don't know. He's, yeah. Thanks, Rick. Please hit the like button. Thanks, Becca. Yes. Prayers for the victims. And Josh says BK always said he was the smartest one in the room. Well, he definitely liked to feel like that, right? He liked to feel superior over other people. Yes, he did have a victim's ID. I showed you guys the receipts of that in multiple videos. He had a victim's ID in the glove inside a box inside the Albrightsville, Pennsylvania home. I'm perfectly imperfect says I think BK has delusions of grandeur, and this is part of the reason he wanted to work in law enforcement. Yeah, it could be. We know that narcissism goes hand in hand with psychopathy, right? They go hand in hand. So grandiosity would be part of that profile. Life's a beach is scary, knowing there are others just like him walking among us. Do you know most people that are psychopaths don't hurt anybody? It's 1 in 30 people. So that means we have people in the chat right now, multiple people who are psychopaths. But there's different scales of it. There's more extreme and less extreme. Most people who are psychopaths don't hurt anybody. They don't harm anybody. This is somewhat unusual. Pam Davison says, I'm not buying this, not accessing either. Yeah, I agree. I think he accessed it. We don't know if it was Kaylee's license. We don't know what it was, but it was a victim's ID. We know that. BK had some other form of access. I really do believe that. Bob says tens of thousands of them. Chrissy says the officers took pictures of it. Yep. That was Kaylee's ID. I feel so bad for the roommates. They must have been terrified. I do too. I can't even imagine how scary it would have been. And then to have people just have to endure people attributing everything to that 8-hour time gap while you're stuck under a gag order. That's got to be so frustrating. Glitters and Gold said there's no telling what BK was looking at, stalking, or what he was doing. Well, I think there is going to be telling. I think we're going to know. I think at the trial we're going to know. I think that's the reason that Kaylee's parents did not get her Bluetooth back, is because we're going to find out. Life's Beach says he knew she was in town. Yeah, because she posted that iconic photo with the one with her, with Kaylee, with Maddie on Kaylee's shoulders, and Ethan with his arm around Sienna, and Bethany and Dylan on either side outside the house. That was posted on Kaylee's Instagram around 8 p.m. on November 12th, in the hours leading up to what happened to her. So he knew Kaylee was home. Mike says his phone would connect from that parking lot 30 feet. That parking lot was close to the 3rd floor. Yeah. So not only watching, but connecting. Yeah. Hey, Princess Mariposa. She says the way that this happened so quickly, believe he had been in the house before. Yeah, I think so too. Dak Tatro says, I remember Kaylee's dad early on saying that he did try to Bluetooth connect her Wi-Fi, but didn't connect. But the attempts were there or something of that sort. I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and look for that now that you've said that, Dak Tatro. That's why I love reading your comments. You guys are so smart. You always bring stuff that, that I've either haven't thought about in a while or didn't know about at all. So I'm not familiar with that, but I'm going to go back and look at it. DM thinks he was in the house. Bell Sung, hey, good to see you. Says 12 times averages out to be approximately twice a month. Most people do travel to a neighboring area a couple times a month at least. Not sure this is proof of anything. Well, I think it's not just going to be that. So my pushback on that, and it's okay. We don't all have to agree on everything, do we? I don't think we do. So my pushback on that is, okay, it's not proof of anything. Well, let's add that with the fact that his DNA was on the knife sheath underneath and to the side of Maddie. I don't think the girls, Maddie and Kaylee, crawled into bed with the knife sheath underneath them. So somebody brought it there. Somebody used the knife that was used in that knife sheath. The night he purchased the knife on Amazon in April of 2022. His car did not have a front license plate. They've got his car on CCTV going to and coming back from the crime scene. His cell phone's pinging. I think it's going to be cumulative. And I think that this blue snarfing is why they've made it a capital case. I think the blue snarfing is why they made it a capital case. I think they know that they can prove he was there. Lori said, I think maybe he had a camera set up outside viewing Maddie. Could be. Could be. Let me see where I'm at. Mama says, charged for staging a break-in and putting the cameras in spine. I'm no expert, but I think that's big time trouble. I'm sure. So if BK did do this, then why are there no charges? Well, charges can be added. We've seen this in the Delphi case. But why are, I think charges can be added. The Delphi case, they just added new charges in. Hey, Arlene, the puzzle is starting to fit together. Good. I'm glad. That's my goal. It's taking the pieces of the puzzle and putting it together in a way that makes sense. Kami says, I think we're all going to be floored when we find out all the digital stuff they have on him. Yes, apparently it's so much that Ann Taylor needs until the summer of 2025 to go through everything. That's not my word. That's what she says. So yeah. Becca says, wow, that's big that BK ordered the K-bar. Yes, he did. Welcome, Lori. I'm so glad you subscribed. Thank you. Marilyn thinks Maddie was a target. She worked at the Vegan restaurant, which he was probably familiar with. Alwyn says, this is to you, Kami. Kami says, I think his move to Washington was in a way for him to continue his education, but also to be away from home and do what he was starting to get the urge to do. Yeah. And he wanted to work at the Pullman Police Department, teaching police officers how to use technology. Let that sink in. JJ says, I'll be back to make comments. I have company. No worries, JJ. Maddie Mogan and Xana Kernodle worked at the Mad Greek. Yes, they did. And they were known to have a good vegan menu. Thank you so much, Angelise. I really appreciate you so much. BK makes you sick. I'm sorry, Leanne. DM says staying in the room. She's talking about the roommates here probably saved their lives. Mike says, yeah, it makes me sick too the more I hear. According to Kaylee's parents, she was found sitting up. That's correct. She was found sitting up against the wall. Yeah, that's really sad. Hey, Farragama. Sabro says here, how much evidence will the Kohberger fan club need in order to admit they were wrong? Okay, this is how I feel about it. It's okay to have different views and so I think there's a certain percentage of people who relate to him. And there's some people that just genuinely have watched, conspiracy type of videos about the tunnels being under the house and all of that. And, by some, I don't know who did those videos. And don't, if don't even tell me. I don't want to do any drama about any other channels. That's not what we're here for. But I think there's a percentage of people that no matter, even if I had a videotape of him actually committing the crimes and I don't, they still would not believe it. They won't believe a pattern of behavior. They individually can well, why would he drive his own car? Individually they can refute certain things. But I think for a jury, it's not beyond no doubt at all. It's just beyond a reasonable doubt. And I do think the defense is going to do that. But I don't even know if it's a matter of right or wrong, because I think if you're on the fence and you're not sure what to think, I think that's an okay place to be. And if you're not there yet, that's okay too. I'm just here because you guys deserve to have all the information so you can make up your own mind. If that's the kind of channel you want to have all the information so you can decide for yourself, then please subscribe to Reporter Room because you are in the right place. Cynthia says, if DM, that's Dylan, had come back after the night of partying, wouldn't the defense use that? Yeah, of course. If she took an Ambien or a Tylenol PM or anything like that, they're gonna go after that for sure. That's Ann Taylor's job. He was mad about Maddie with her boyfriend. He went to the house several times, maybe squeezing in during a party house. He has such a creep personality. Blockella says defense can't figure out a connection with BK to the students. If prosecutors have this Bluetooth digital evidence, why don't they have to share? Well, they do. And what does Ann Taylor tell us? She needs until 2025 to go through all of the digital information. So this tells me there is a lot of digital information. Such a great question. Such a great question. I love your guys' questions. Becca G says, I remember when that happened, the victim was screaming and no one helped. Yeah, that was back in, I don't remember when it happened, but I remember it's been used in psychology classes before to talk about the bystander effect, bystander's syndrome. Was that her name, Pharaoh Gamer? Was her name Kitty Genovese? Was that the victim? Blissful Elixir says, I hope they can put him away, but I don't think the Bluetooth will do it. I think it's going to be cumulative. I think it's going to be the Bluetooth. I think it's going to be the phone pings. I think it's going to be the car on CCTV camera. I think it's going to be the car tag and possibly him driving it. I think it's going to be multiple things. I think it's going to be cumulative, just like in the Alex Murdaugh case. It was cumulative. Reporter, are you saying you believe one person did this? Yes, I am saying that. Okay, you trust what Dylan's allegedly said, but nowhere does it say where she was. Yes, it does. She says where she was. She says she was in her room. It does say it right in the affidavit. Denise is saying 862 people watching, 338 likes. Please give me a thumbs up. Yeah, help me out. Help me out with the algorithm. Even if you hate watching it, that's okay. Everyone thinks everyone else is going to do something. That's the bystander effect, right? And the fact that she and Bethany were texting each other could have been part of that. Thanks, Lori. Sabrosa said there are people saying that bushy eyebrows is innocent and that the two surviving female roommates are the perpetrators. It's insane. Yeah, and the thing that breaks my heart the most is that the same people that come into the comment section to say, well, he's innocent, free BK, whatever they're saying, those same people make the comment to lock up the two roommates who haven't been charged with anything. They haven't been indicted. They haven't obstructed justice. They haven't given an interview. They haven't broken any of the rules. So what it's like, where is the grace for the roommates? And then my other question that I'm starting to wonder is, why do some people identify with the perpetrator so much? What is it in their background? Do they have a trauma bonding that they identify with perpetrators? Are they really just on the fence? But these are the ones that are just really going after the roommates so hard. So it's hard. It's sad. Angelique says, talking about patterns, same pattern with her college girl who lied about helping her install cameras, ate her home in her home. Also, when he was stopped at the Indiana state trooper, he was talking. Yeah. And the state trooper says, where are you going? And his dad says, they're going to Pennsylvania. What does BK tell the trooper? What did he say? They're going for Thai food, right? They're going for Thai food. I don't know, you guys. It just, the whole thing, it just bothers me a lot. Lance says, there's no evidence that BK did this, just a lot of mainstream media pushing narratives for clicks. Really? I think there's a lot of evidence that's already starting to pile up, and we haven't seen everything yet. We've just seen the tip of the iceberg. And, you can try to refute one mainstream media, Lance, but you can't refute all of them. Not every mainstream media is out there just pushing this for clicks. They could say this about anybody who was indicted. And, at some point, you just have to, you don't have to, but at some point, people are going to realize that mainstream media, when they say a source tells them this or that, they vet their sources. You can't just bring in and call up a mainstream media and claim anything, and they're going to put it on the news. They vet their sources. You have to prove who you are, prove how you're connected to this, and prove somewhat of what you're saying. So when this informant came forward from WSU, he would have had to have proved he really did work there in that department before they would publish that. So you can believe it or not believe it. That's completely up to you. I'm going to bring you all of the information and you guys can decide yourselves what you guys think. I haven't heard anything about a club, and I haven't heard anything about this, about her not being recognizable. This is just, you know, yeah, content creators make what off their, will they, I don't know. I'm not even worried about it. It's okay. People are going to do, it's up to you guys who you guys want to support and who you don't. That's up to you. Needs severe sensory stimulation. For those of you that don't know what ST is talking about, he's talking about sociopaths need that. Ann says, have you seen the car headlights not even go over the tire? Elantras 2015. You guys have seen one video. One. You haven't seen all the videos yet. So you guys have seen one video. But it's okay. If you don't feel the same way that I do, that's all right. We don't all have to agree. Serious Black says, I bet when we see his car with no license plate on the front. And here's another thing. When he got back to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, people who are saying, but he wouldn't drive his own car to the crime scene. He knew he was going back to Pennsylvania. He knew this trip with his dad, this road trip was planned. And what did he do when he got back there? He changed his tags. Didn't renew his tags. He changed his tags. Just saying. He's a peeping Tom, and that's how a lot. Yeah, we used to think peeping Toms were so harmless. Now we know that they're not. Lynette says, I will never understand. They say Xana's finger. Oh, I don't want to get too graphic. I got to keep this G-rated. Tara says, oh, I'm so sorry that you went through that. Considering the dad asked BK's neighbor to be his son's friend, tells me those parents knew he was mentally unstable. Yeah, they knew he was having trouble connecting with other people. And we know from the stuff he wrote under his XR account, under the Visual Snow account that I shared with you, that he was depersonalization. He described himself feeling like a sack of meat. He described viewing other people as a sack of meat, right? And on that note, I'm going to go do my members only live stream. If you want to become a channel member, please subscribe and hit the join button, and you can become a channel member, and your name will appear either as a producer or as a channel member at the beginning and during my videos and live streams. Okay. So please subscribe, and I will see you at the next live stream.